Obamacare is dead. Long live Obamacare. Well, okay, it's not dead. It's not even on life support. The House GOP absolutely failed to repeal or replace it with a bill that nobody loved. That's not what we're here to talk about today, though, on Right Angle with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. I'm Steve Green. Instead, we're here to talk about what happens next. And yeah, it looks like repeal is dead and Obamacare is here to stay. Hey, gents, this is what triggered this thought. A couple of things came up in the news over the last couple of days. Reince Priebus was on one of the Sunday chat shows on Sunday, and he said, this president is not going to be a partisan president. I think it's time for our folks to come together. I also think it's time to get a few moderate Democrats on board as well. Bill, let's say you're a moderate Democrat. We're pretending. Let's say you're a moderate Democrat. You're in the House, and the Republicans, having just fallen flat on their face, stepping on rakes, setting their own pants on fire, and all the rest that we saw last week on this repeal and replace bill that didn't repeal or replace before it went down in flames. You're a moderate Democrat, and the fractured GOP leadership is coming to you for your vote to fix Obamacare. What are you going to demand?
Popcorn,
Yeah,
I'm going to demand some popcorn.
Redenbacher, baby.
I hadn't really realized this until you were actually just asking the question, but because I'd always thought that the left, since the election of Donald Trump, has been delegitimizing him every way they can. Demonizing him is not strong enough of a word. They've just made him into, they've made him into, was it Cheetos Hitler? Now, I always thought they did that for the public reaction, but the truth of it could be that Donald Trump has been so demonized, so delegitimized by the Democratic Party in general, that there's not a Democrat in the world that's going to vote for anything that Donald Trump has put forward. They know what the base says about this guy, and they know that they agree with anything on Donald Trump. They're going to be primaried right out.
Well, okay, let me try this from maybe a slightly different angle. Let's say you're that Democrat, and it's a year from now. You've got congressional elections coming up. Obamacare, the exchanges are failing even worse than they are this year and the year before, and it's going to implode unless you throw a lot of money at it. Aren't you going to make the case that Donald Trump is killing old people and poor people by not throwing more money at Obamacare?
I think most people in the general citizenry make the assumption that whatever good or bad happens during the tenure of the current president, that is the reason why it happened. They tend to think the president is a chief executive in the way that he would be in a corporation.
Yeah.
They don't see that Congress can block things. So if good things happen during Obama's period, then Obama's good, and if bad things happen, then Obama's bad. And when prices are being spiraling up out of control, it's Barack Obama's fault until the point that Donald Trump is inaugurated, at which point it becomes Donald Trump's fault. And that's just the way it is, I think, by and large. Donald Trump has many, many strengths, and one of them is the ability to just completely circumvent the mainstream media, which is the main reason I voted for him. However, I think one of his primary weaknesses is Donald Trump is not, I've never seen him do it, is not good at explaining things. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to be the explainer in chief, and you have to basically tell the people and the people in your party, including the rank and file and congressmen and all the rest. You have to explain to them why we're doing this, why are we doing it, and until we find some sense of that. Well, first of all, BillWhittle.com is going to be in great shape financially, but until the president can get to the place where he has to explain complex things like, look, this came with this, and it's not our fault. You don't want to say it's not our fault exactly, but you get the general idea.
Yeah. Okay, Scott. Just so you don't think I'm reading too much into one Priebus quote on a Sunday show, Senator John Cornyn, the GOP's number 2 guy there, he said on Tuesday morning, it's clear this, talking about repeal and replace, needs to be done on a bipartisan basis. He's saying that reconciliation is no longer going to be good enough for the Senate, and so they're going to have to pull Democrats on board. So is Obamacare light really the only thing we can expect at this point?
I think you're being optimistic.
Maybe I am.
I don't think
I don't get that a lot, but
I don't think the word light applies. I mean, here again, and how many times have we heard this in the past? Things that are so important to conservatives, so important to Republicans, and then we hear some Republican basically in an official capacity saying, "Well, it's the law of the land now." Which is what House Speaker Paul Ryan said about Obamacare, as if it weren't the law of the land already. But, they said the same thing about abortion. They've said the same thing about untold numbers of issues that were very important issues to Republicans. And then we just capitulate and say, well, it's the law of the land. I don't see, going into this vote, I didn't see how the phased approach was possibly going to work because, as Bill pointed out, there was no explanation of how those phases work. Nobody stood up and said, look, here's what happens. This month, we get this piece of it. Then in June, we come back for the second bite of the apple. And then in August, we do, there was no steps to the phasing. There was no indication of what might happen in phase two. And all of it, if you look back in hindsight, how could you blame the Democrats for anything in this? The Democrats unilaterally passed Obamacare without a single Republican vote, and then the Republicans lost their nerve when they had a chance to do anything about it. And I don't mean about voting on this bill. I mean when they had a chance to actually introduce, like Representative Mo Brooks, as he's a senator or Representative Mo Brooks, bill, which basically just repeals Obamacare and says, okay, Now let's go back to the way things were before and move ahead. So I don't see Obamacare light coming down the road. And I think we're going to get into negotiations where the states are going to beg for more money when it comes to Medicaid and Medicare and stuff like that. And it's only going to grow. And President Trump in his campaign openly said, look, I'm not going to touch your entitlements. And it basically his whole campaign was, whatever is good that you like, we're going to keep. Whatever you don't like, we're going to get rid of. We're going to do it right away or within 61 days or at some future date. It's the Democrats' fault that we didn't do any of it.
Oh boy, Bill, you wanted to throw something in there, or did I mishear you?
No. I just wanted to say that Mo Brooks' healthcare answer is one sentence long. I'll just read it for you since I happen to have it. We talked about it in Scott's episode. Effective as of December 31st, 2017, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act is repealed, and the provisions of law amended or repealed by such act are restored or revived as if such act had not been enacted. Full stop.
I like the Mel Brooks version better, which is, don't be stupid, be a schmarty, join the Democratic Party. All right, folks, let me tell you why I think Scott's right here. I'm running long on time. I got to wrap this up quickly. Every other major expansion in the welfare state in Washington, D.C. was driven by Democrats, but in a broadly bipartisan way. They got a ton of Republican votes for Social Security. They got a ton of Republican votes for Medicare and Medicaid. They got 0 Republican votes for Obamacare. So it wasn't cemented in place in a broad bipartisan fashion. So the GOP had a chance to do what had never been done before, and that is to roll back the welfare state, and they muffed it. And that's it. We're gonna get Republicans voting on some kind of thing that's going to salvage what is left of Obamacare, and that is what is gonna cement it in place. Unless Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump really surprise us over the next year or two, that's probably what's going to happen. It's my sad duty to report that to you. All right, thanks for tuning in to Right Angle with Bill Whittle, Scott Ott, and myself, Steve Green. We'll see you next time.